A shocking scene for such a major city. And beyond the capital, Beijing, the Chinese economy itself is feeling the pain of the coronavirus outbreak. Tens of millions of people are now under strict lockdown.
The novel coronavirus taking a toll on the lives and health of the Chinese people and its economy. At least 3 Chinese provinces and 65 cities, including some of the country's most populous areas, are under various levels of lockdown in an effort to control the disease from spreading. Some neighborhoods and villages in China are issuing permits to control who can leave their house and when. Each family can go out only 1 every 2 days and has to be back in time, or else they face forced quarantine.
It's almost like putting everyone in prison. This is like another form of imprisonment.
Tang, a China Affairs commentator, says the restrictions are having an impact across many industries. Restaurants are closed, transportation shut down, retail and tourism are also suffering.
It's almost like taking a nosedive. Many businesses just stopped operating overnight. This type of impact can be deadly for some.
In China, the service sector, which has probably been impacted most by the lockdown, accounts for over 50% of the country's GDP. Economists estimate that the sector has lost over $100 billion in just a week during the Lunar New Year holiday. But it's not just about direct loss of money.
It can also lead to changes and shifts in the supply chain. If the disease cannot be controlled within a short period of time, many foreign companies may withdraw from mainland China, which could cause a surge of unemployment.
International retailers, including Starbucks, McDonald's, and IKEA, have closed some or all of their stores in China. A Japanese chain store decided to permanently close all 7 locations in China, citing its daily revenue sinking into a 20th of pre-outbreak levels. In a previous interview with NTD, infectious disease expert Rajiv Fernando said that China should have been gradually escalating disease control measures, instead of first trying to cover up the outbreak and then putting massive-scale lockdowns overnight. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths.
about getting their kids vaccinated. Measles. I'm the measles.
Oh.
Measles. Tell parents about vaccinations.
They have to get the shot. The vaccinations are so important. This is really going around now. They have to get their shots.
And we're going to dive into the Federal Register today with information that you need to know and that you may face as early as this week. And that is why it is critical to get you this information. And that is why I'm doing this special broadcast. First off, the coronavirus, I've been hearing, oh, this is just a coronavirus. That's, you get this little tiny cold and you're going to get better in no time at all. You need to understand that the novel in front of the coronavirus means that this is a laboratory engineered virus. You might want to think of it as a GMO of viruses, and it is weaponized. It has potential for great devastation. Whether it's real or perceived, this is the biological 9/11 attack that has been unleashed upon the world. So what has been established, because they knew that this was coming, is a pan-enterprise architecture for biosurveillance with interoperability. And what that means is, it's got several parts to it. There's loose coupling, there's contracts, which we're going to discuss. There's autonomy, there's the AI portion. This is going to be run by artificial intelligence, abstraction, reusability. Everything has to be reusable these days. Composability, statelessness, so it goes beyond sovereign borders. And as I've stated for the last several weeks, that this is sovereignty's last hurrah. After this, we're going to see a real concerted effort by global governance to eradicate states and discoverability. And you might think, oh, this is new. This is just this novel coronavirus is something new. No, actually, it was cited in the August 15th, 2016 Federal Register for under severe acute respiratory syndrome, which was also related to the Middle East respiratory syndrome, which is MERS, and also related to hemorrhagic fever, Lassa and Ebola, and also the highly pathogenic avian influenzas H5N1 and H7N9. So now what we are going to be looking at today is the Federal Register proposed regulations. They were submitted by the Health and Human Services on August 15th, 2016. They were addressing the control of communicable diseases, and it became finalized on October 15th, 2016. What you're going to see in the next few minutes is basically medical martial law that was laying in wait for something like the coronavirus to come into being. So to really understand it, what I'm going to focus on today, although the document itself is 88 pages, are the definitions, because you might run into this tomorrow. I'm not saying that you will, and God forbid you won't, but it is possible, and that when the WHO did their announcement and when the United States did their announcement, it basically changed our paradigm. So I'm just going to go down the definitions in alphabetical order, so it is not how they are presented in the actual document. So you're going to see that there are agreements, and an agreement is entered into between the CDC and an individual expressing a voluntary agreement. This is like forced voluntary between the parties that the individual will observe public health measures authorized under this part as the CDC considers reasonably necessary to protect the public health, including quarantine, isolation, conditional release, medical examination, hospitalization, vaccinations, and treatment. And so you are going to be forced into a contractual agreement with the CDC. So you need to be aware of that. Apprehension means the temporary taking into custody of an individual or a group for purposes of determining whether federal quarantine, isolation, or conditional release is warranted. This means that any of us at any time, especially within the next month, can be apprehended by public health officials or law enforcement and forced into what we're going to see here in a few minutes. The communicable stage means the stage during which an infectious agent may be transmitted either directly or indirectly from an infected individual to another individual. That means that they may not be symptomatic. I mean, it starts at the very first day, and a person with a novel coronavirus may not be symptomatic for 10 days. The conditional release means surveillance as defined in 42 of the CFR 71.1 and includes public health supervision through in-person visits by health officials or their designees, telephone, or through electronic or internet-based monitoring. There's actually a little bit more about that we will go into in a few moments. So you might be released and self-quarantine into your home, but it's going to be a conditional release, and you're going to have all these checkups and electronics to make sure. You're basically going to be placed in electronic prison.
The one we chose has a similar virulence to the devastating pandemic of 1918, with a return period between 100 and 200 years. The map you'll see shows the progression of the event, including the number of mortalities in each country. The pandemic begins in Mongolia and spreads rapidly to other countries including Russia, China, Korea, Armenia, Germany, Japan, Hong Kong, Tajikistan, and the Ukraine. Travel restrictions and quarantine measures take effect in the originating country by the end of the second month. However, these actions are not effective in preventing the rapid spread of the pandemic. The World Health Organization declares a pandemic phase 6 in the 4th month, indicating a global pandemic. Vaccines begin to come online only in the 6th month. The first batches are reserved for high-risk individuals, such as those with underlying medical conditions, children, and healthcare workers who are generally considered to play a crucial role in the spreading of influenza. The efficacy of the vaccine, which varies by patient age, ranges between 40 and 60%, which means that the vaccine works for only about half of those people who receive it. The pandemic continues to sweep across the world. Although cases are reported in all age groups, the very young and very old experience the most severe infections. As is common with pandemic mortality, the virus impacts a disproportionate number of people under age 65. The R0 value for this pandemic, a measure of how many new victims a disease carrier is likely to infect, is about 1.5, only slightly higher than a typical seasonal flu. The virulence of the virus, as measured by the case-fatality ratio, is comparable to that of the Asian flu and Hong Kong flu pandemics, or a Category 2 pandemic on the CDC's Pandemic Severity Index scale of 1 to 5. At this level, workplaces are advised to consider modifying schedules and rely more heavily on telework and staggered shifts. At the end of 22 months, the World Health Organization declares the end of the pandemic. It has killed more than 21 million people and infected more than 1.6 billion people worldwide, or nearly 23% of the world's population. Life insurance losses exceed $45 billion.